Really thrilled for the chance to come and meet with you guys all. And I have some PowerPoint slides, really just because I thought it would be useful to kind of talk about some of the research that I do. And then I'd love to be able to have a conversation about what you guys see as this, where this group can go, and maybe how I can help, or how my department can help. For those of you who don't know, I'm in the Department of Urban Environmental Policy and Planning. We're right here. Bedford campus. It's part of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. So we offer a minor in urban studies, and that's something that has been kind of quiet for a while, but we started to really expand it. And so if anyone of you are interested, I'm happy to talk about that later. We also have 2 master's degree programs. One is a 2-year, primarily residential program, where the students come from all over the country, all over the world, and get a really intensive experience in the topics of urban environmental policy and planning. That's an accredited master's degree, so it makes a really easy path for someone who wants to kind of work as a practitioner, wants to be an urban planner, or deal with environmental policy, any of that kind of work. And I actually brought some brochures about that program. And so the other program is really for mid-career professionals. It's a Master's in Public Policy, and you have to have at least 7 years of related professional work experience. And so this is actually a great program for us because we bring in basically people who are accomplished professionals, and they are in the same classes with the people who are kind of emerging professionals. So that's like a really nice mix. A lot of our courses are open to undergraduates on a provision basis, but so there are chances, there are opportunities for you during the time you're at Tufts to be involved in some of our coursework, other activities. And I want to just talk about my research and give this little presentation, but I'd love to have some time also to brainstorm about where this organization is going and what we're doing. Any questions or thoughts? Does that sound okay? Great. To begin by just kind of telling you guys a little bit about myself and my background and how I came to this. I did already talk about UEP. That's the department that I work in. And then I'll talk about 2 areas of research that interested me. So just about me, I went to college here in Tufts, and I majored in political science. And I always wanted more about kind of urban policy planning and development experience, and I didn't get one. But when I graduated, I did start working in the field, and then eventually I went back and got a master's and worked for almost 10 years in a variety of different urban environmental policy and planning realms. I worked for a couple of regional planning agencies, and then I worked for the federal government, being involved in some real estate issues. One of the more high-profile cases was Governor's Island, which is had been a military base right off of the coast of Manhattan, about a quarter mile away from Wall Street, was closed. And so part of my job was to kind of figure out what can that be, what can that space be. And so today it's actually a really exciting multi-use. There's a National Historic Park there, and there's cultural activities, and there's a park. So I got involved in that kind of work. But this is my 7th year at Tufts, and so I've mainly been focusing here at Tufts on teaching and research and outreach. And when I talk about outreach, it's basically planning and practice. It's doing planning, but doing it within the university setting, which is a little different than real world. So let me talk about what I've been doing in terms of this is my slide on UEP, sorry. This is really what I was saying before about urban studies minor and the 2 programs. So I working with a team of both graduate and undergraduate students, I created something called Open Neighborhood. And we were really just trying to find a better way to engage people with community planning processes in a way that takes advantage of a lot of the new cool technologies that were emerging at that time. This was about 5 years ago. So what it did is that we used these 3D immersive programs. Second Life is create virtual models of neighborhoods, change those models, and then show them again, and give people a chance to interact with that environment. And so this is one we did in Somerville. This is around the Green Line extension, kind of getting people excited about what that's going to mean and how the addition of new rapid transit is going to change their neighborhood. But we also went out to the people. It wasn't just online. We held like a lot of events, and this is at local high school, and you can see the energy and excitement on people, some of their faces, playing some of these games and interacting. And this one, which is a graduate student here at Tufts. We also, in addition to the technology and taking people the immersive 3D animations, we also gave them tape and paper and just let them try to create a vision of what this neighborhood might look like. And we got a lot of ideas. So in many ways, I really felt like it created a carnival atmosphere. All these different kind of rich different colors you can see displayed in all these different. Each one of these is about 11 by 17 that we asked people to interact with. And then here are these kind of large scale maps that are on the floor of the neighborhood that we're looking at. This is a local art exhibit of high school students. And here's the website. And so really, the website being the portal to kind of give people a chance to get involved with all kinds of different stuff. And just to kind of get a flavor for it, we'll just do a YouTube video. You know how easy it is. Do I? Where was this video?
You're not sure you'll decide later.
I'm not sure I'll decide later. Okay, thank you. So this is just a screenshot from the program, the second lift program that allows you to walk through these virtual neighborhoods. Has anyone ever been to Dillon Square? It's only like 2 miles from here. Where is it? It's like where the city hall is, and near the library. It doesn't look like this. This is our vision of what it would look like, based on extensive community interactions. So a lot of what the MBTA has been doing is talking about station design. And so our interest was that the stations, that matters. What matters more is how these new Green Line stations are going to affect the surrounding area. And so that means creating, we want to make sure that they're going to be creating appropriate public spaces, that they're going to be able to that there's going to be opportunities for different modes of transportation to access the T, so bicycle, pedestrian. There's a community path that's being planned for this corridor. Has anyone ever experimented with Second Life or any of these kinds of programs? So what it means is within the program, you create these 3D models, and it's actually pretty easy to do. I don't know if it looks hard, but it wasn't that hard. And then you have other people could log on at the same time, and then so you can kind of work together and collaborate. And then we created these. I really kind of thought of them as robots, because you could create like a person that could talk to you, and then you can interact with in this virtual space. And so it really provides a lot of opportunities for people to get excited about planning and get excited about transportation. And what we found is people end up sharing their ideas and sharing their thoughts in a way that traditional kind of public meetings end up being just kind of the people who are antagonistic and just kind of fighting it out there. Okay, so I want to get back to my PowerPoint. So, any questions about open neighborhood or any of this planning effort? Is this stuff you've seen before? Familiar, standard, conventional?
Not necessarily.
What'd you say?
Not necessarily. It's fairly new.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not the way that most cities or planning agencies really kind of look to engage people. we partner with a regional planning agency. But one of them did partner with the local municipality, and the stakes were a little bit higher there. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's I think helping to advance the field. I think that there's a lot of people who are trying to do this kind of work, but they run into barriers. There are definitely barriers because it hasn't been tried, true, and tested. But my own experience is it gets people excited, and that's the most important thing. So I wanted to give you guys a sense of my work in shrinking cities. These are the books that I've written about this topic. And so my first book, all on the left, was really looking at the challenges of reusing and repurposing former industrial property. And this is a rusting factory in Youngstown, Ohio. So what happens when there's no longer big high demand for manufacturing in an area that's just full of factories? And that's a problem that has been called a brownfield problem. That's the center of the book. Brownfields are these sites that have either real or perceived contamination. And the question is, how do you get them back into some sort of reuse? How do you manage the externalities that might be associated with them? There could be pollution, there could be crime, there could be arson related to the fact that there's just a site that's just sitting there. And so that's been a lot of my research. But what I published this book last year as a way to kind of shift and ask those same kinds of questions around residential neighborhoods. I was really affected by how, with the Great Recession, we started to see massive depopulation and abandonment in residential neighborhoods. And so I was looking to try to make some connections in that work. Here are just some maps to kind of help frame this. This is work that I did just a couple years ago. Actually, this was last year because it was using 2011 data. So what you see up here is all of the postal code geographies in the U.S. Each polygon represents the boundaries of the post office. Zip code, sorry. Okay, so what I was asking here, if you want to start on this top one, was between 2000 and 2006, do the number of occupied housing units in each of these zip codes increase or decrease? Now let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever lived in a zip code where the number of occupied housing units increased? Probably. Where was it?
I think it was, actually I'm not entirely sure what it was. At different times it increased.
Yeah.
And it was in suburban New York.
Suburban New York, yeah. And so what would make it increase?
Interest in schools there. There was a bunch of people wanted to move in, housing prices were good, they were increasing, and people wanted to buy their real estate while it was going up so they could make money from that eventually.
So physically, were they building new structures?
Yes, they really have.
So in the neighborhood, the green one, it means, for the most part, that it's expansion through building new structures, new buildings. You could have a situation, and that actually happens here in Somerville, where you have like a single-family home, and then it's subdivided and turned into, say, 3 units or more. So what we're talking about here is occupied housing units. Now, what about a red? That means that between 2000 and 2006, it lost housing units. So has anyone been in a neighborhood, in a zip code, that lost housing units while you were living there? Yeah.
I've never lived in this place, but we were actually talking in our meeting last week about southernmost town in Illinois, which is Cairo. I don't know if you've heard about it. But, I was visiting there last summer, and it was just a very sad story, just how desolate it's become.
So what does it look like physically?
Just one long boulevard. There's a paper mill nearby in Kentucky, and it smells terrible, and it's just very impoverished, and there's gangs on every corner, and prostitutes on every corner, and burning cars.
So we don't know anything about the prostitutes or the burning cars, but look at this map. What we do know is that there are less occupied housing units, and we know that there means physically something has changed. So the kind of textbook example would be an abandoned building. So neighborhood you're living in, all of a sudden now there's a unit, maybe it's a house, and it's no longer occupied anymore. So a neighborhood used to have like say 30, 40 houses, now it has 39 houses. There's one less. So this is not usually one, I mean, usually it's more than one. But if you can imagine the difference in the experience of living in a place that has growing number of housing units or declining, this is going to make a difference in the quality of life, likely, of that place. So that's why we're looking at it this way. And so what was happening during what we're calling the Great Recession here, 06 to 11, was not like super dramatic, but definitely a shift. So what you have here is mainly this kind of whole Great Plains area experienced, had a lot of these red splotches. The upper peninsula of Michigan, kind of Appalachia here. And then what happens here, the lower peninsula of Michigan, it's really just diffused much more throughout the Midwest. And then you're starting to get like a lot more on like coastal Florida, this whole like southwest Arizona region, and then inland California. And I have another way to show it to you. So this is the first period, and then the second period. First period, second period. So we did look at the totals, the summary totals, and it was worse. It did get worse. And it also shifted a lot of the shrinkage, this decline of housing units, occupied housing units was really happening much more in the suburbs. And you can't really see that well here. But total numbers of occupied housing units were declined during this Great Recession period, and so the first period, the second, and it shifted out to the suburbs. So this is what we usually think about when we think about a neighborhood that lost occupied housing units. So to be very precise here, so this house has, look at, you see the boarded up windows. This one is partially charred. So this street here, these are all multifamily, just so you know. These are all 3 floors, probably 6 units. Some of them might be 3 units of housing. But so here, this is clearly, they've lost a couple units here and here. This one's probably lost some units up here where there was a fire. So this had been maybe like 20 units, and now it's probably like 14. Oh, in the foreground, that actually was an entire structure. There was a 3-floor building right here in the foreground that was probably 6 units, and now it's just there's tires and other debris. So this is the face of that map. Usually, this is another face of it. This is where there had been several structures, and now it's just barbed wire fence containing this area. But I wanted to look at this a little more systematically in one city, in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And so, working with a team of students, we put together historical maps of New Bedford, focusing on 3 neighborhoods. Now, so this is a moving gift, so you're going to see as it goes through. This is the Cove Street neighborhood. It's going to circle back. So 1906, the neighborhood wasn't even fully built out. But you can see over time, it adds more and more units, and then starting the 1975 image, they start to disappear. And then by 2010, they disappear even more. I'll show you another one. This is the North End neighborhood, built out in 1906 as laid out, and then really it hits its peak in around 36, and then starts to decline. Yeah.
Is this supposed to show a sort of increase in housing units because of the sprawl, or would there also show like increase in housing units if it's like you build an apartment building, there are a lot of housing units on top of each other?
All this is showing us is the footprints of the buildings. So this is a data source that I've used before, where paper maps were created during each of these time periods, not just in New Bedford, but basically over the whole country. And these, it's called the Sanborn Fire Insurance Maps. And so they were built, these maps were designed to, as a fire insurance tool. And all they noted in the map was the building footprint. Actually, that's not true. I think some of them, in some cities, it doesn't give more information. But for this research, all we were doing was we were just digitizing the footprints. So we don't know about the exact density? I think that's your question, right? Because we just don't know. What I was trying to do with this was to, number one, get a kind of sense of how the density has shifted, but number two, to look at the spaces that have been left behind. So where there had been a building, what comes of it? Those photographs I showed you a moment ago seem to suggest it's just dereliction and decay and rains comment. I mean, it's just like a war zone, right? I mean, it's just bad, right? But in my experience in New Bedford, I've done some other research there, and that's not what I found. So I was curious to see what was left behind where the buildings disappeared. This is the last one, and it's most compelling. You see the time scale down over here. In the 1960s, this urban renewal project was built, which involved a new highway and some public housing, a new elementary school. So a lot of houses were removed like that really quickly. But then you also just see just a general thinning out of the number of houses as you get kind of further into the 70s and then the 2000s. So this is what I found when I looked at those spaces. So for those three neighborhoods, there were maybe like 40 or 50 parcels of land where there had been a house. We documented in the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps. And working with my students, we went and we looked at all of these spaces. And so this is one of them. So this is a story of there had been 3 structures there. They were all demolished. And I don't have all the details. I suspect arson was a big factor. Neglect. But they were all demolished over time. And this was all just basically just a vacant lot. And the community rallied around and got the city to build what they call a pocket park. It's just a little park. It's just like one garbage can and a couple benches and trees. And so what they're doing here is they're creating a public and civic space instead of just saying, oh, well, it's just empty and you'll just live with that. They're reprogramming it. Here's another example. It's another one. There had been a house between the yellow and the red building. What's there now? What do you guys think? It's an apple tree, actually. So one of these owners, I can't tell exactly, I think it's the one on the red house. They've appropriated it as an extended lawn. New Bedford is a super dense city where people don't really have a lot of yard space or lawn. So now these people have a larger yard and a place for the dogs to run around. So when you look at those maps I showed, the houses are disappearing. Well, this is what's coming as a result. It's another good example. This had been at least 2, it may have been 3 structures, and now it's an urban farm. Those trellises in the back that grow on grapes. I don't know what they're growing in the foreground, but it's being used, being actively programmed. So what this is showing me is that the DNA of the city is being rewritten through all these different types of efforts. And it's not just some sort of devastated scene. New Bedford has shrunk. New Bedford has lost lots of people, it's lost lots of housing units, but it's a mixed story, it's not all bad. And so the question for urban planning is, can we recreate that? Can we be more purposeful? City's policies were very weak with respect to creating those images I showed you and reprogramming those uses. It was mainly through individual enterprise. Mainly through the efforts of neighbors saying, I don't want that to be a vacant lot next to my house, so I'm going to take it over. So my research is continuing in this area. I'm trying to write a book about the New Bedford experience and really just trying to open the eyes of city planners across the country to kind of think about their own cities and how their own cities have adapted to depopulation. And for us not to focus only on the sad
who's responsible for the maintenance of these pocket parks?
Well, the one, maybe I should, that's a city of New Bedford official pocket park, and they are responsible for it.
So doesn't the creation of pocket parks, isn't that limited by city's ability to maintain the
Sure,
parks?
and that's only part of the solution. I'm working right now with the city of Baltimore. We're trying to do this project where the city sees maybe 30,000, 40,000 vacant lots and abandoned buildings. So they've got a huge problem. The question is, what will they all become? So they won't all become pocket parks. Some of these sites actually would be really great for stormwater management. So when a drop of rain falls on this lot, if it's infiltrated properly, it can save the sewer system from having to manage it. So there's benefits from that. Urban agriculture, like I showed you before, community gardens. These are all like possible future reuses. And so to not think about it like there's just one answer, but in many ways kind of unleash the creative power of individuals, business owners, investors, in trying to remake a city after abandonment. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do here.
What have been some of the more creative and innovative responses to lot abandonments? For example, urban farming.
What have been the creative?
Yeah, just like that you've seen.
Well, I mean, one of the most striking things I've personally seen is in Detroit. It's called the Heidelberg Project. Has anyone ever seen this or heard of it? So Heidelberg Street, just an ordinary street in a very poor, very depopulated part of Detroit, that an artist basically came in, a local Detroit artist, came in and turned all these vacant houses into art. And, sculpture, and he brought found objects and put them on the lawns. And I don't have an image here, but I mean, it's really, definitely check it out. It's like the most amazing thing. And it was all just his idea, and he got some of his friends to help out. It's now the #1 tourist attraction in Detroit. So I mean, one person, one lot can kind of change how people even kind of think about a neighborhood. And he started this one street, but when I was there just last spring, it spread out. There were like 2 or 3 blocks in each direction.
I don't know if you know much about Redwood, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn, but I was wondering, there's a new, this is a new, it's been going on for a while, there's a old trolley that they have there by the water. Redwood's a neighborhood right by the water in Brooklyn. And there's been a debate about whether they should put it back on. I think the rails that were in that neighborhood are now under asphalt, but there's still a lot of cobble streets there as well. There's a debate about whether they should bring Charlie into the area to help revitalize the area. And I was wondering, I guess if you don't know about that, what you thought just in general about using transportation to help with shrinking cities, and also, for instance, I know the trolley might not be the best idea, and buses could do the same thing, but I was just wondering if you have any examples of using transportation for that, and if there's funding for that, and is it shrinking, there's less funding, so they probably get rid of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a conundrum there, but yeah, I think a lot of what my interest in this topic surrounds is this question about why should the city government be involved in the changes that are happening. So in the case of New Bedford, the city government really was largely ineffective in managing this depopulation. So what about other places? Does it make sense for cities to be involved in this process? And what should their aim be? So if you look at a typical